I only viewed humanity's loss of life during the war as a mere statistic. There always have been terrible wars throughout the Federation's history, so what makes the human and for Orcs war so different? Sure, humanity lost 40 to 50% of their population. Is a massive loss to their society. However, humanity easily regained those lost numbers, if not more, from the races they freed from the war. With the freed races under humanity's banner, and how advanced their technology has become due to the war, humanity is, in my opinion, in the best shape it has been in its history, although I was naive to think that deaths are only statistics. I viewed humanity's way of celebrating the closure of the war with great distaste. I expected humanity to be patriotic to the point it would be annoying, considering that they were the underdog that fought the strongest empire in the galaxy, and won. But humanity didn't. Other races would have taken the day to be as patriotic as they can, holding military parades all over their planets and broadcasting throughout the Federation net. However, humanity's way of celebrating their war was morbid, to say at least. They made no effort in being patriotic. Instead, they spent the day remembering those who were killed during the war, holding massive remembrance ceremonies throughout human space. From colossal cities to the smallest village, remembrance ceremonies were always held. A major thing to note is that humanity always burned letters at these ceremonies. I always assumed this was humanity's way of remembering their dead. A strange custom, I thought. However, I would find the truth of this custom sooner or later. One year, a close friend of mine invited me to a human military base to spectate their remembrance ceremony. Although disinterested, I accepted out of curiosity of seeing the ceremony in person, as I always viewed it from a screen. And so I travelled to one of the human worlds to meet up with my friend, who moved to human space to work as a doctor after the war. My friend suggested spending the week before the ceremony on base to get to know the human soldiers. I declined, stating I had better things to do with my time. Besides, what would understanding the humans do if it was only about a ceremony I've seen year after year? As a result, I travelled to the base the day before the actual ceremony. I remember checking in, being space-lag from the long travel, and meeting my friend. We got our guest passes and were given a tour of the base. I remember seeing war machines parked in neat rows, ranging from infantry hardsuits to tanks. It made me shudder at the thought of those weapons actually being used during the war. Out of the entire tour, the thing that grabbed my attention the most was each soldier on the base telling a story of some caliber. Some were funny stories, or some poor private managing to piss off the staff sergeant, while some were sad, recalling their experiences about the war. However, most of the stories I eavesdropped on were happy stories, or some soldier saying to his friends how he just became a father, got married, or something that brought them joy. And this stood out to me, although I didn't know the reasoning at the time, seeing the human soldiers telling stories. No matter how happy or sad, they were telling a story, and this had a profound impact on me. After spending the day touring the base, eating dinner, and having a few conversations with the soldiers, it was already night. After thanking the soldier who led us to where I and my friend were staying, I thanked my friend for the opportunity for seeing a human base and its occupants. Honestly, I regretted my decision not coming earlier, to indulge myself in more of humanity's story. Telling my friend good night, I soon fell asleep. I probably only got a few hours of sleep before I was soon awoken by my friend. He told me, "The ceremony's starting." Confused, I asked my friend why the soldiers on this base were hosting their ceremony when it's still early in the dark. To which his response, "You'll see." Therefore, I got out of bed, albeit a little cranky after being woken up without getting my full night's rest. I remember rubbing my eyes as my friend led me to the base's parade ground, when I saw it. All of the soldiers in their full-dress uniforms lined up in one long single-file line, leading to a bonfire in the middle of the parade ground. My friend led me to a spot where I could see where the line ends to where the fire starts. I vividly remember the sight of each soldier, letter in hand, walking towards the fire, then stopping, taking a brief moment to look into the fire, then their letter, before throwing the letter into the fire. Afterward, they step off and join the slowly growing formations around the fire. I remember standing there, tuning out the outside world just to observe soldiers throw their letters into the fire. It was a surreal experience being there in person. My opinion about humanity's way of celebrating was shattered. It was something you'd never experience watching from a screen. As the heat from the fire embraced me, It washed away my fatigue. It suddenly dawned on me. My short time on this base made me realise that humanity loved stories. These letters aren't for only their deceased loved ones. It's mourning for the lost stories. The tragic loss of life during the war robbed so many stories from being told. And this was humanity's way of mourning for their dead, and for their lost stories. Symbolised in the letters that were being burned, letters that were never sent. I stood there, ashamed of myself for thinking that the death toll is only a statistic. Rather, it's the loss of the individual, their personality, aspirations, the stories they had, gone. 40 to 50% of the population isn't tragic due to how many have died. It's the loss of story. Stories that will never be told other than the letters that they wrote. Some were sent. Most were not. I remember standing there for what seemed to be days. All the human soldiers standing at attention. And when the last soldier finished burning their letter, the entire base surrounded the fire. Everyone stood in formation until the fire burned out. And when it did, the commanding officer said that everyone was dismissed. Afterward, the base was deathly quiet. It seemed that on this day, no stories were told. And that's why I write this novel. We must strive to cherish their memories, to tell the stories that were lost, to honour those who are living, and to remember those who are not. Stack Startwill, author of the Federation's bestseller, Stories.